You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar. Colonel, it's good to see you again. Let me already begin, sir. The Philippine Navy vessel BRP Benguet on its way for a rotation and resupply mission in Rizal Reef Station, harassed by the Chinese Navy, how so, blocked and shadowed. Sir, is this the first time this happened?
The report says that there were instances of harassment, particularly shadowing operation, but this is the first time that they tried to cross the bow of our naval vessel, which is LS-507, which is a kind of elevation of their activities as far as mission with in Rizal Reef is concerned.
Colonel, how close or how far was that distance crossing the bow of the Philippine Navy vessel?
At first, ma'am, they tried to shadow our vessel to as close as 80 yards, so it's very close actually. But later on, because it happened for more than 3 hours, the People's Liberation Army Navy 621 of China tried to cross the bow of our LS-507 from a distance of 350 yards. So we considered it already as close enough to be considered as a dangerous maneuver on the part of China.
That's why those words were used again, dangerous maneuver. But from what I understand, Colonel, at some point, did the Chinese Navy change course?
Yes, ma'am. From the video I saw, the Chinese vessel changed course probably after they were warned by our naval personnel that they are violating certain provision of the Convention on International Regulation prevention of collision at sea, which I think is a realization that also that this activity, that their action in that particular area is being recorded. So that probably changed the decision on the part of the crew of the China vessels.
And how would you describe that? Certainly people know, especially at sea, know what this, as you mentioned today in an interview yesterday, it violates the provisions on the International Convention on Preventing Collisions at Sea. Again, that is familiar to many of you, and for them to do that and then eventually change course, how would you describe that move?
That move is actually very irresponsible because it may cause an accident that will endanger people's lives. It is very unprofessional also because they are directly violating conventions that guide the conduct of navigation in seas. I think that's the best description for their action.
And if somebody is involved in something like this, where does the country that was harassed, does that country actually go for help or seek assistance in a situation like this?
What happens, ma'am, is that of course there will be filing of protests against that particular country to where the violator comes from. So we expect that because of this incident, after we have submitted official report to the Department of Foreign Affairs, this will be another protest that will file against China.
Another diplomatic protest. So here's the thing, Colonel, that I wanted to find out from you. When you said preventing collisions at sea, is there another term that can describe this in the event that something unfortunate happened? For example, they crossed, they shadowed and blocked the Philippine Navy boat. Ano po? Would that still be considered a collision? Because in my mind, obviously collision is two boats hitting each other. But if a boat actually hinarang ka para hindi ka makadaan, I know that is not a lesion. Ano po? A lesion is tatamaan ka because you're stationary. Collision, dalawa. Pero yung sinadya pong harangin kayo, meron ho bang ibang term doon?
I think they use the general term of collision because that is also an attempt to actually cross the path of our vessel, and which will result to collision. So I'm not familiar of any other word that can be used uh, for this situation, ma'am.
And Colonel, how are the Navy personnel? Were you able to speak to them, those involved in this issue, who were confronted with this harassment by the Chinese Navy?
I spoke to them weeks ago when I went to Palawan, and I can say that they are high morale because they are receiving the full support of the government, of the Filipino people. Of course, the reason for that is that we also have the media uh, telling the whole world what the sacrifices of our sailors, especially in navigating in our maritime zone.
And lastly, Colonel, you had mentioned in yesterday's interview. I was able to watch that. You said, this is not you because it started with the fishing boats, the Philippine Coast Guard, but now it's the Navy. What could possibly happen next? Ganito na lang ho ba yun that can we expect, I guess, let me rephrase that. Could we expect more harassment and challenges from the Chinese Navy to the Philippine Navy?
If China will continue to assert its 9-dash line or 10-dash line, we can expect some distractions coming from them, probably with some harassment. But we will, of course, stick to our position because this is what international law says, the UNCLOS says. So we have to fight for what is right for our countrymen, for our country, and what is supportive to the rules-based international order. So yes, this is something new because this could be an elevation of what they have been doing before, because they were shadowing before already. But we will be firm in that resolve, and we can assure the Philippine people that the armed forces of the Philippines will be there to protect our sovereignty and the integrity of our country.
AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar. Sir, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also, ma'am.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.